Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah, so I implemented a departmental dam along with Iris and Jen there, and it was such an honor to be able to work with those brilliant librarians there. So then I hopped over to the Met. So thanks for coming to my talk. I'm really excited to be back at Henry Stewart. I've been here twice before, and I've learned so much when I've come in the past. And I'm always just really hyped when I'm in a room of people who are equally passionate about metadata and digital asset management. So I actually started out as a formally trained artist in fine art photography and video installation. And like a true millennial, I'm also a coding boot camp graduate. So this has provided me with a great foundation in and a passion for technical knowledge. I like to talk about workflows. I love to help people troubleshoot their issues. And I especially love the privilege of working at the Met and in the GLAM world. That stands for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. This talk will cover a short history of the museum and its mission. I'll go over our systems integrations and how we allow our data to flow across our digital ecosystem. We'll feel the pain of failure, and we'll feel the joy of triumph. I'll also share a few new workflows for complex digital objects, including film, video, and 3D assets. And I'll end on the topic of sustainability in the practice of digital asset management at the Met. So 2018 marked 10 years of digital asset management and over a century of creating representations of artworks at the museum. So my question is, what has the last 100 years taught us about the management of photographs, film, and other digital assets? And how do we reflect back, refine our processes, and continue to innovate? I'm going to give you a short history of the institution before we begin. When the Met was founded in 1870, it owned not a single work of art, and through the combined efforts of generations of curators, researchers, and collectors, our collection has grown to represent more than 5,000 years of art from across the globe, from the first cities of the ancient world to the works of our time. And this is a photo of the Fifth Avenue facade at 82nd and 5th on the Upper East Side. While you're here in New York, please come visit us. In fiscal year 2018, the Met welcomed more than 7.35 million visitors to its 3 iconic sites here in New York City. Again, we see the Met Fifth Avenue in the center, the Met Breuer on the right, and the cloisters on the left. Additionally, the online collection and a web project called the Timeline of Art History reached between 1.5 and 2 million views per month on metmuseum.org. The online collection houses a page for each object, which includes high-resolution and color-accurate photography, thorough and digestible metadata, including the title, culture, date, department, provenance, and more. Many object pages also include audio content to further enrich the experience. And the Timeline of Art History pairs essays and works of art with chronologies, telling the story of art and global culture through the museum's collection. And I like to think of our web presence as like our 4th public space. In February 2017, the Met launched its open access policy. These are a few open access images here. So over 400,000 images of public domain artworks in the museum's collection became available for unrestricted use under Creative Commons 0. Our policy is that images of objects are put into the public domain when possible under US and international copyright law. In February 2019, we added a new subject keyword dataset that enhances how both humans and machines can filter and analyze the museum's collection. Jeannie Choi and Stephanie Post are here with us today. They've worked diligently to make sure that our subject keyword tags are up to the museum's standard of excellence, along with all of the other excellent work that they do, of course. And this data laid the groundwork for a partnership between, and an AI hackathon between Microsoft and MIT, and of course the Met. My favorite project from that collaboration is called Storyteller. I encourage you all to look it up. It basically analyzes audio recording or a story that you might want to tell, and then it generates an image series based on that recording. So you can try it out at mystory.ai/speech. So how is this all made possible? Could it be our mostly meticulous and sometimes miscellaneous cataloging, as evidenced by the Photograph Studio Logbook, Miscellaneous, Volume 1, 1 to 5,000? Or perhaps it is because the museum has had an uninterrupted program of providing visual aids for the arts and humanities since the Met's Image Library opened in 1907. 20 glass-mounted lantern slides were stored at the museum's information desk, and that's pictured here, May 12, 1921. This continued commitment can be seen throughout our archives, now held in the dams. On the left, you see an image of the slide library in 1969, and on the right in 1980. I don't think that much changed in the technology during those years, but some great cataloging happened. The department that was the slide library is now the digital asset management team under the umbrella of collection information, headed up by Jeannie here, and within the museum's digital department. Yes, that's our department name. Many of our core staff members have been with the museum since the 90s, and they've ridden the wild wave of exponential growth in born digital content and the shift to iterative delivery cycles in contemporary software development. The first digital asset management system was implemented in 2008 at the Met. The initial install included a subset of digitized slides from the slide library's collection, and born digital content workflows were created. In 2016, the museum migrated over 1 million digital assets to a new DAMS. Success is not a silo, right? It's an ecosystem of processes that are all talking to each other. So the success of the DAMS at the Met is contingent on the integration between the imaging department's project management tool, the digital asset management system, the collection information system, and the collection records database, which is the data source for our public-facing website, the Met Collection. The goal of DAM at the Met is to harvest metadata where it already exists in order to scale up, increase user adoption, and to create bandwidth for manual descriptive cataloging. The original system designers thought carefully about the Met's information architecture and laid the groundwork for the second DAMS to modernize the technology stack, adding a series of automated cataloging tasks and new ingest methods to increase user adoption. This foundation has rendered our assets interoperable. Assets are now easily passed between systems using APIs and database connectors. The collections information system can be compared to a PIM in a lot of cases for those coming from outside the museum world. And it's our mission critical system of record, right? There's around 100 power users, 500 users monthly or more, and that's across 20 departments. It's heavily utilized as an administrative tool. The Met acquires about 2,000 objects per year. It's also tracked in that same system. Exhibitions and outgoing loans are about 300 per year. And anything that comes into the museum, even if it's not an accessioned artwork, gets an object record created for it. So there's tons of data in there. It's an amazing database used heavily by museums across the world. We also have, I think, around 1,000 customized reports. The other major system of record that is mission critical is the DAMS. It holds currently around 1.5 million assets and holds 90 terabytes of storage and is rapidly growing. Our highest quarter last year, we saw 15,000 assets downloaded, 34,000 assets uploaded, and 20,000 images deployed to the collection information system. And that was largely related to a vase fragments project through the Greek and Roman department. So I wanted to talk you through the diagram. I'm kind of a weeds person, so bear with me if you're not super technical. But basically, the curatorial department can request photography of objects in the collection. That can be conservation photographs, gallery photography. They can make digitization requests or order post-production on existing images. And the departments are required to register an official project name before they begin so that we can control that list. That list is then used to auto-categorize assets in the DAMS. And after the photographer is finished with the shoot, they can upload their photos directly to the project management tool. And this has a direct link with our DAMS. A subset of metadata is then passed from the project management system into the DAMS along with the assets. And depending on the photography type, a series of rights metadata is applied, including an indication of whether or not the photography is open access, and permissions are controlled through our taxonomic structure, but most images are available to view and download by all our staff members. All the photography taken by our imaging department goes through the digital asset management system. So once assets are in the DAMS, a second sync with the collection information system is performed. You'll see that there in the middle. So that's a live sync. The object information might have changed between the time that the original order was placed and the object was actually photographed. And then there's also a nightly sync that occurs, right? So That happens through a series of data aggregations using the collection information systems audit trail and some processes that compare the checksums of strings that change over time. And I inherited these processes from some very brilliant technologists who preceded me. I did not create this all myself. Some of you are in the room. Thank you. And although those folks had moved on from the Met by the time I arrived, the architectural plan and the vision has held strong. Another nightly process that occurs is pushing derivative JPEGs from the dams to the collection information system. Our photographers are using the newest Hasselblads that generate like 500 megabyte TIFFs. So we want to push a derivative asset that can be picked up and put onto the website and in the collection information more easily. And that's also put onto a IIIF compliant image server. IIIF stands for the International Image Interoperability Framework. It's an open source series of API specifications and a suite of tools that consume them. And the ultimate goal of the IIIF community is to have a standards-based way that museums deliver their collection data and images so that tools can be used across institutions. Right now, the Met just uses IIIF to serve up all the main images of objects on the online collection, but we're starting to build the bones of making data available that way. CRD does another data aggregation from the collection information system, and it serves it up on the online collection in a more user-friendly way. The metadata makes a lot more sense in that view than going into all the complexities of the collection information system. And for the rest of metmuseum.org, we use another CMS that has its own set of integrations that I decided not to include here. Okay, enough on that. Now, back to our practice. In digital asset management, a continuous practice of systemic evaluation is necessary. Cataloging, systems design, metadata schema, and taxonomy development are ongoing and iterative processes, and the necessity of this practice became apparent in 2016 during the large migration project and the systems redesign. So after the migration, catalogers spent a lot of their hours troubleshooting technical issues caused by the very automations designed to help them. We had bottlenecks that were stalling projects for months due to changes in staffing and the subsequent loss of technical skill and institutional knowledge. And a lot of that's to be expected after a major migration, right? Things are always gonna get a little bit wonky and have to go in and troubleshoot some things, fix some metadata and things like that. So how can we turn these kind of issues into an opportunity? I like to see problems and challenges as opportunities, right? That's how you can frame things that are going wrong in your system or any performance issues in the positive for your user base. So we want to keep the pipeline flowing, right? And we needed to come up with a framework to do this. So step one was to identify the bottlenecks. Step two was to make improvements, which there you can see the bottleneck is bigger, but there's like a little spout at the bottom where it's not coming out so fast anymore. And step three is get user feedback and, of course, rinse and repeat. So after a few wash cycles, uploads and downloads increased exponentially, and within a year, the number of contributing departments increased from 17 in our previous dams to about 25, and we continue to grow that. We accomplished this not only by following this process, but also by creating a series of automated integrations tests. We developed a thorough UI testing script and a standard set of test assets for each workflow. And we work closely with our vendor to make incremental changes that add value for our users. Recently, we also introduced some new marketing automation tools that allow us to more easily customize our workflows and to generate new reports. So in any software, you will always be working in a system of constraints, and it's up to us to learn how to work within these constraints to get the best possible result from our dams. So now that we solved that problem, here's a new challenge: film, video, and advanced imaging. So all the dams workflows and integrations that had been created up until this point were designed almost solely for photography workflows, which run on a per asset basis. How can we deal with more complex packages, like non-accessioned film and video, as well as advanced imaging 3D captures? They're doing photogrammetry and laser scanning at the Met. And how can we incorporate digital preservation into these new workflows? The imaging department has created hundreds of high-resolution 3D models. These projects often contain thousands of files and are multiple gigabytes in size. This is a model of the object titled Fragment of a Queen's Face. In real life, that's bright yellow. But it's a relatively small package, around 15 gigabytes, which includes the raw capture data. But a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to ingest a 498 gigabyte package. This package included hundreds of TIFFs and photogrammetry data that had been taken by a Hasselblad that was strapped to a drone and flown over parts of the cloisters as part of a conservation effort. And there's a wonderful article about this from the New York Times from last year called A 12th Century Relic Meets 21st Century Technology. It's a really good read if you're interested in that. So to ensure that these projects are ingested into the dams, or at least stored whole and intact, we added Baggett to our workflow. Baggett is a tool that was developed by the Library of Congress, and it allows a user to create checksums and a specific package structure, and then validate it before and after ingest. The package is then checked on a schedule to be certain that no data loss has occurred and that the relationships within the package stay intact. And as many of you know, these relationships are critical when reopening project files, and that applies not only to 3D objects, but also for film and video, working files, InDesign, software-based interactives, or other applications. Films created by and for the museum have been produced since 1922, and in an effort to make these films searchable and discoverable, we added them to the dams. Placeholder records were created for yet to be digitized analog film and magnetic tape, and a workflow was created for born digital video. As a result, the speed of digitization has increased, and we can more easily identify format obsolescence risk, and users are free to do footage and image research in one place, the dams. This animation was created from a film called Behind the Scenes, the working side of the museum in 1928. And it was a really cool find. A title card in this film states that the museum already has 300,000 photographic negatives stored on site at that time. We're currently scanning this film in 4K, and we plan to release a version of it as part of the museum's 150th anniversary in 2020. These film scans produce equally complex packages to those produced by advanced imaging, and this will be no surprise to those of you who are familiar with film scanning and DPX packages. But to give you an idea, I received 2 projects this week. Each of them were 1.5 terabytes and contained over 10,000 files per package. So now we're faced with a new question, right? Are these materials even appropriate for a digital asset management system? Which version of these film scans do we want in the dams? Or do we need to get a digital preservation system? What formats do we want to push out to the public? And what do we do with these packages if we don't have a digital preservation system? Are there preservation actions that we can perform? So Baggett will still meet that need. But we also purchased some accelerated file transfer tools that use a faster checksum algorithm than Baggett. And this allows us to safely transfer the projects from a hard drive to a computer and will allow us to bag the project there. This is an object titled Padlock and Key from 1531, made in southern Germany. And my favorite part of the description on the object page states, this padlock boasts a beautifully coordinated mechanism designed to confound an interloper, but work with systemic clarity for those in the know. Disguised by numerous dummy holes, the real keyhole is revealed when one of the shields is turned to the right, releasing 2 bolts, unlatching a cover inside, and causing a panel to slide up. So what can this overly engineered padlock teach us about sustainability in dams? Sustainability is the key, right? So as user adoption grows and ingests increase, bottlenecks, performance, and scalability issues will rear their heads. So taking the last 100 years into account, how do we refine our asset pipeline for sustainability, preservation, and performance, but with minimal disruption to our established workflows? So step 1, we need people. Step 2, focus on user adoption. Step 3, measure our rate of growth. And step 4, we need to focus on scalability. So for people at the Met, the system must be able to be maintained and expanded upon by permanent staff members without explicit reliance on contractors. You can hire them as needed, but we really need our core group to be able to maintain the system. 2, user adoption. It's driven by ease of use, by having minimal metadata entry needed by contributors, and by metadata harvesting from systems that already contain information that we need, and by the completeness of our records that our catalogers so diligently spend their time researching. and our rate of growth, right? So we all know that standardized workflows scale across departments, require less people power, and can ultimately create more long-term happiness. If you have less variables in the things that people are doing, it's easier to troubleshoot. You can get things done faster. And scalability. You want to create an architecture with the lowest technical barrier and cross-train staff members to increase your stability and technical redundancy. Keep a schedule and design tests that account for upgrades across all your integrated systems, and most importantly, staff accordingly. I brought some prizes for best question. So thank you so much for attending today, and we will take your questions now.